Welcome back. Yes, meteorologist Mike Pringley with meteorologist Robert Speta. So from St. Pete to Jacksonville, big shout out to all my friends on the First Coast. We are just streaming it up because we are talking now a Cat 4, soon to be Cat 5 hurricane that's still expected to turn away from us, well to the east of us. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing we got to say right off the bat, because this is, our cross Florida talk. This storm is not going to directly impact us here in the state of Florida. In fact, it is 1,400 miles away. But as you just said right there, our point for these streams, a 25-minute stream, is to talk the science, help you stay informed, make proper decisions, and break down this forecast here for you. So that's what we always do here, and that's the whole point of this, right, Mike? So
you got it.
Let's take a look at right here. There's the latest on this storm, and we're just talking about the 11 a.m. update just came through not too long ago. 155 mile per hour sustained winds estimated within that center of circulation. Now, remember, that is the core of the storm structure, that inner eye wall. The outer rain bands are stretching out from that, and you see those areas in yellow there. That is parts of the Leeward Islands. Tropical storm watches are in place. Pressure down to 923. But Mike,
yes,
I think this already, if not this soon, if not already, is a Cat 5. Your thoughts?
Robert, I think you and I may have been the first meteorologists that we're talking Cat 5. I remember us talking about this last week. We saw the atmospheric conditions. We looked at the water temperatures together. We were saying, yeah, long-range forecast showing at least a major, but we know what's been happening in this climate of ours. Rapid intensification, water temperatures 2 to 4 degrees above average, lower wind shear, and just really a runaway type train here. So we take a look at this in front of the wall. So a good synopsis here. We are expecting a Cat 5. It's going to happen. So you can see the latest from the Hurricane Center, 160 mile per hour winds by 8 a.m. And then notice we're going right now west at 17. Then it's going to turn more to the west-northwest for the second part of the weekend. And really, I think this thing's going to peak out as we head into late Sunday, early Monday. Then it's going to feel the effects of a trough, a little bit more choppy atmosphere, a little more hostile environment there. But even with that, this thing is so powerful, it's going to take a long time to wind down. We're still talking Category 4 by the middle of next week. Pretty amazing. But the big thing to point out, here's Florida, here's the main track, here's Bermuda. And right now, if you look at this, it's taking the perfect track. So that is the good news. Everything has been behaving that we've talked about. Not only the intensity that we've been talking about, Robert, but the track. In fact, I'm just amazed at this scientifically, meteorologically. We love talking the science here. And notice that small pinhole right there. That's a pinhole eye, just so small. And it's like a speed skater that wraps its arms, wraps his or her arms in to go faster and faster and faster. So we've got an amazing pressure gradient force taking place as that air is spinning toward the center of the storm. And that air is forced to accelerate and literally tighten like that speed skater. So I think we've only just begun with the intensification. 155 mile per hour winds moving west, and that pressure now at 923 miles per hour. So if you look at rapid intensification, and Robert, you can talk more about this.
Wow.
You need 35 mile per hour increase in the wind over 24 hours. We've gone from 75 to 155. So you do the math. 55, another 25. That's an 80 mile per hour increase in that wind over 24 hours. So that met the threshold then again, and so 2.5 times the threshold. And notice the pressure yesterday at this time, 996, we're at 923, and of course a Category 1 to a Category 4. So what are your scientific thoughts, just thinking about the power of these things?
Oh, yeah, it is just a powerful storm. Here's the deal. This was moving into those areas of warmer sea surface temperatures, and it's been struggling with the Saharan dust the last few days. But I think today it just kind of burst out of that Saharan dust kind of plume. And then once it got into those warmer temperatures, just the atmospheric conditions came together. And plus, on satellite picture, not only does this have like that buzzsaw shape, but we've been seeing that outflow aloft, good lungs for this to breathe. And objectively, from a meteorologist standpoint, we are not excited about this storm. We're not going, wow, what a beautiful storm. But objectively, from a science standpoint,
yes,
this is a textbook powerful. Like the last frames, especially here, if you looked up major Cat 5 or Cat 4 hurricane in a textbook, this is the picture you're going to see here. And so it really just shows the power behind this. And the other thing that we're seeing here, with this rapid intensification, and why I think this is going to continue to strengthen a little bit more, is that I'm looking at the radars coming out of the Leeward Islands, and there is not a double eye wall there, meaning that we're not looking at an eye wall replacement cycle anytime soon. So that's going to continue to deepen. And right here, the hurricane hunters are out there. You see all these lines? We got two planes. We got a P3 in there right now. We have a C-130. So NOAA and the Air Force Reserves are out there. What's important? So the Air Force is dropping those drop zones. They're putting those measurements right into the core of the storm. The P3s have a tail Doppler radar. So they have a radar on board that is absolutely fantastic in getting that, just not only wind speeds for one specific spot, but the general structure of that inner core of the storm. And both are showing this continuing to strengthen out there. And I think from a science standpoint and a meteorological standpoint, it just shows this just being a textbook, just intensifying storm system out here, Mike. So
yes,
that's the big thing right now.
Synopsis.
You know what? We know what's grinding my gears, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Is a lot of people are calling this a fish storm, though.
Oh,
and
boy.
I'm like, if you have a boat in the Leeward Islands, it's not a fish storm.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's not having any direct landfalls for sure, but this is going to be a historical storm in many respects. The way it's going to intensify even more today, and it could be in one of the top 5-10 storms for the month of August, and August is known for some pretty big ones, Robert. So yeah, we'll give Hurricane Erin its due, and of course, hopefully there's no ships or boats anywhere close to this. And we did a little graphic showing it's staying about 100 miles to the north of those islands. So that's the key. If you have friends in Puerto Rico and the Windward Islands there, Leeward Islands, the news is at least good that it's not going to have a direct hit. In fact, Robert was talking about those water temperatures. I've been showing them as well. And we really went from water temperatures much cooler than we saw last year, where it was just kind of meandering in the dust. And then when you see it hit the deep reds there, that's the mid to upper 80s in the water temperatures. Once it hit that was like high octane fuel just feeding this beast, and just ferocious winds out there. So notice it's going to continue to go over this just very warm water. Again, it's running about 2 to 4 degrees above where it should be. That's going to keep it at least a Cat 5, I think, as we go into later today, most of the weekend, maybe even into early next week. And then slowly, as it recurves to the north and northeast, we'll see it come down to a Cat 2. But what's concerning about this, and we look at trends as we head through the hurricane season. I was telling Robert before the show, I don't like this for the rest of our season. I don't like seeing a Cat 5 out there right now. And if you look at the water temperatures, it's going over this big swath of water that's feeding it right now. And then you come closer to home, well, the water only gets warmer from there and into the Caribbean. We really keep a very keen eye on this area as we go in toward especially September and October. So again, it shows you how concerning these above normal water temperatures that have really set in over the last few years can be for these storms. And unfortunately, hurricanes now take it to the next level. When you get a Cat 1, 2, or just a Cat 1 like we saw yesterday, it doesn't take much for them to get to a Cat 4 or 5. So as we look at the one thing scientifically, we were talking about just the amazing power, sheer power before us this morning. We were also talking about the science and the forecasting. And I think, Robert, your thoughts on this? I think it's the Hurricane Center, as usual, has done a very good job. You see the previous forecast in the blue there as it's come across, and then the current forecast almost right in the middle, splitting the middle here between Bermuda and the United States. So it's really done good. And of course, as meteorologists, we're always very careful in the air. I said, we're not going to give the all clear yet. Let's wait and take it a day at a time. We know how the tropics are. But for all intents and purposes, this has behaved, right?
Yeah, and I like it because, yes, there is a little westward jog there, but it's still well within the cone of air. If you look at the initial warning and then you look at the projected cone right there, it's inside of that initial cone. So the forecast is projecting as expected. The intensification, which is still objectively something that we continue to work on because the intensity of a storm is definitely the hardest thing to project. But they did expect, and right from the bat, we are all anticipating. You mentioned last week we were talking about this probably going to become a major, maybe a Cat 5 type storm. We are there already. But yeah, overall, the forecast is continue the trend as expected. You got to give credit where the credit is due with it. With that said,
you ready for some?
You know, it's going to stay well east of us here.
You want to look at some spaghetti here?
I'm looking at some. Sorry?
We can do some spaghetti models if you like, showing some more of those tracks, talking about it staying east. And I know you're going to get excited about, we get excited about the science, okay? That's what Robert and I, we love the more models, the better. I don't think, you know, you and I always have paper, I have sheets and sheets of models in front of me all day. I know you're in the office looking at them, even when we go home, we always sneak a peek at them. So let's look at some of those models. Here's the GFS ensembles here, Robert, and you can see doing a really good job here all along. Again, keeping that track well to the east. And I'm going to let you take a look at the Euro ensembles, okay? Check this out. Pretty, okay? Scientifically, yeah, it's very pretty because it's, if anything, maybe a little closer to Bermuda. So unfortunately for our friends in Bermuda, still got to watch the island nation very carefully, okay? All right, but so for now, so far, so good. And then here's both of them. This is the one I thought you would like. I don't know if you've been able to show this. But
yeah, I like this.
You like this?
It shows that two different supercomputers on two different sides of the pond coming together and basically showing almost the exact same thing.
Right, and so for folks at home trying to understand these ensembles, just basically it's the computers running the same, it's basically a formula, different formulas with different starting points, and that gives us some at least higher confidence when we start to try to forecast these things into the future, correct?
Yeah, and this all goes back to that recon too, because now we have the recon, you have two planes out there, continuous, and you have that initializing factor. Because prior to the hunters going in there, if people don't understand, the initializing data is satellite data. It's looking at it going, that looks about right. So the recon gives us ground truth, and that helps improve the forecast a lot out there. Mike, let's talk about potential impacts if you want.
Sure, yeah.
For Florida.
Yeah, so that's one thing, thinking of my family in Florida here. So here's the deal. It goes back to the dangerous seas and rip currents. So I'm going to pull up a graphic here. And, you know, when I first looked at this last week, I was still thinking more 4 to 6. And then I thought to myself, well, wait, we're talking about a much stronger storm than I think that we see that's going to be forecasted. So I think we may be talking more like 5 to 8. So if we look at the updated wave heights, if you can get a better look at this, first things first, if you're in areas like Jacksonville Beach, St. Augustine Beach, the pier, I think the rip currents could really start to be felt even by later tomorrow. I think by Sunday and especially Monday, and then the waves will really start to come up. The surf and the breakers really starting to come up there by Monday and Tuesday. So notice Monday I've got 2 to 3 feet. All right, watching our friends in Jekyll Island and St. Simons as well. And then, the update, there it is, Robert. So as expected, you know, you're going to have a stronger and more intense storm. You're going to get a bigger swell and bigger surf. And the latest is now 5 to 8 plus as we look at that east coast and northeast Florida coast into southeast Georgia right now. And if we keep this moving, you go up toward the Carolinas, easily 10, 12 feet is what I said this morning as it starts to eventually spin away. But boy, I'm thinking in terms of beach erosion as the thing we got to watch out right now, more on the minor side. But again, our beaches have taken a pounding in northeast Florida, and a little bit minor to me is significant these days. And then as we take a look at the rip currents, a lot of folks don't realize the power of this. So it could be a beautiful sunny week, and you probably will have a nice sunny week from Tampa to Jacksonville Beach. But unfortunately, the danger's hidden. It's in the water, okay, with those rip currents, right?
Yeah, you know, and it got to like kind of specify, because I know today in Tampa and Jacksonville, we are expecting thunderstorms out there.
We are.
But not associated with Erin. It's a completely separate weather phenomena. For us on the first coast, though, Monday into Tuesday, I actually brought down the rain chances. So
yeah,
you're right. And I think that's my worry, though, Mike. I would prefer a little bit of rain. And hear me out. This is why. Because
I get it.
No one's going in the ocean if it's raining. But my worry is if it's not too rainy, but we have relatively dry air, but those swells coming off of the storm are going to be powerful. And then you're talking about the rip currents, even good swimmers and surfers who they're going to see those 8-foot breakers and go, yeah, I'm getting at it.
They're excited. I can tell you the surfers I've talked to, are they cannot wait, but I've told them the word of caution, please. Even the most experienced swimmers, surfers will have dangerous conditions to contend with these breakers for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough go. And then you mentioned the beach erosion, and I do think we also could be looking at minor tidal flooding. And the reason for that is right about there. You can see the winds are coming in from the north and east out ahead of this. It's interacting with that same high that's keeping it towards the east. So we have this long kind of fetch area is what we call it. The amount of time that the winds are blowing over the waters. And the St. Johns River today, because of the rains we've been getting the last few days, is already running just a little bit high. So we could be looking at those waters backing up in the bays and inlets in the St. Johns. I am not expecting significant flooding.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that,
definitely
Robert.
those water levels a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think that's important to include the tidal flooding because we are heading toward the new moon as well. Most folks don't consider the new moon with the same pull as the full moon, but yeah, when it comes to the tides, that new moon really gets things flowing again, and tides usually run highest at the noon and the full moon. So that would be based on the atmospheric flow we're showing here. Even though it's looking sunny and beautiful, boy, with that wind direction, that flow, and the high tides with the lunar cycle, not a good combination. So really impacts that can really sneak up on folks in a hurry, especially if they're not paying attention. And that's for sure. And that's why we're here doing our update here this morning. If you're just joining us, 11:18 a.m., we've got the latest information. So Robert and I were going through all the different scenarios and just wanted to run this by you here. We now have a Cat 4, soon to be Cat 5 hurricane. Let's take a look. I just want to go in here again and show you the powerhouse storm that's really winding up. We've talked about the eye wall. It's not even close to an eye wall replacement cycle, okay, which was a good point there. And this, right now with 155, Robert, we've had wind speeds estimated at 180 at flight level, correct?
Yeah, and pressure, they had the recon got 920 out of this. So honestly, that's why I'm saying I think this is a Cat 5. And Dvorak analysis, which Dvorak analysis is what we use to analyze a storm structure if you are not privileged to have recon. In places like the Western Pacific or the Indian Ocean where there's no recon, that's how they get intensity of storms. Dvorak analysis shows a Cat 5 here too. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're just joining now, objectively, this is a textbook, just major hurricane out here. The good news and the saving grace of it all is right now and through that extended forecast, the winds, when we talk about 155 miles per hour, that only extends 20 to 50 miles from the inner core of that storm.
Right.
That's where the destructive stuff is. Unless you are a lost sailor, you're not worried about that. They're really just seeing those rain bands, and that's why there's those watches and warnings you can see illustrated there on the graphic. That's why those are in place, because those rain bands out there, Mike.
Yeah, good synopsis. In fact, here's the recurve away from the United States here, turning away. And you were talking about that wind field. This is so important, even for our friends in Puerto Rico, the Greater Antilles here. Really, it's more about the rain today. So it's not going to have a direct impact, it looks like, on any land areas at this point. Big land areas. I'm not seeing it for Bermuda. I'm not seeing it for the Bahamas. I'm not seeing it for Puerto Rico and the islands. So that's some great news there. Maybe later in its life, it could be up near Newfoundland and Labrador. And as strong and powerful as this thing is, maybe holding on as a strong tropical storm or hurricane. But for now, over the next week, still looking like it's going to stay out over the open waters. And I think that's the perfect path for all of us. And as we said all along, here's Florida, here's the track, and we've been reiterating this, it's going to still be between Bermuda and the United States. It's staying about 755 miles I have to the east of Michler's Landing near Ponte Vedra, Florida. So that's good news as it takes that track. In fact, you can see the tropical storm force winds, and you can see the percentages 10, 20, 30, all the way up to near 100%. And if you look at this in the coastline of the United States, I like this graphic even more. We're not even showing the very outer fringes of some of that higher wind speed. But as we know, the big thing we watch, okay, with these storms would be, the water. The unusually high tides, the beach erosion.
Mike,
yes,
right behind you, 11:20 a.m.
Okay.
This just got upgraded to a Cat 5.
All right, there we go.
Look at the graphic.
That's why we're here. Let's go back to the graphic. We got a Cat 5 as we're showing those winds, and we'll come back here. And the power of live streaming, Robert. Okay, good eye.
Yeah, that
Teamwork.
that just changed while you were looking at the camera there. So that recon just coming through.
Here we
Look
go.
at the pressure down the 917. We haven't seen a pressure that low, I think, since Barrel, maybe.
Yeah, that
160 miles per hour.
Yeah, that may be since Milton.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Might have been Milton.
Yeah, so Milton, I think, is the last time we saw that. And here it is, Hurricane Erin, the breaking streaming news at 11:20, 160 mile per hour sustained winds now moving west at 917. So again, the lower the pressure, stronger the storm. And we're not done yet, Robert. I'm still seeing just an amazing symmetrical storm with tons of banding features here and something as we watch it. And the good news, again, it's staying 105 miles north of our friends in Anguilla.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, this is still strengthening because we're not seeing an eye wall replacement cycle, which would allow it to weaken a little bit. And it's moving into this area still, those warm sea surface temperatures. I mean, it's nearly 90 degrees. The reference I like to use is think of 90 degree sea surface temperatures like if you have a bonfire going and you're like, I want it to warm up, and then your friend comes along and just pours gasoline on it and it goes kaboom. That's what's kind of happened with this storm over the course of the last 24 hours, and this is just absolutely explosive rapid intensification. That graphic there just a second ago showed you going from 75 mile per hour winds 24 hours ago to now 160 miles per hour.
So
that is double the technical definition of rapid intensification. As a meteorologist and somebody who studies the tropics, this is just textbook. The good news is we've been talking about that 100. No one, unless you are a lost sailor, no one's feeling that 160. But it's still impressive out there, Mike.
It is. So again, I think if we go back to the last time we had a 917 millibar hurricane, that was with, that had to be Milton there. So we look at the history. We said this would be a historical Hurricane Erin. When we came on at 11 o'clock, I said, hey, this is one for the books, Robert. We looked at the symmetry, the way it was coming together, the way it was feeding off the water. And as we were watching here, a rapidly intensifying storm. And the recon, the hurricane hunters have been doing a great job getting us the latest data sets for sure. And we look at the overall picture, and it's still expected to recurve away from the United States. That's the good news. But we're going to have some really, we may have to look at the erosion, the surf, and exactly how high it's going to be along the Florida coast and all the way up and down the coast, because I think it's going to be a lot higher, and we've seen those numbers continue to trend higher because this is a much more powerful storm here with Hurricane Erin. Now, as we take a look, if you're joining us here, we got the fresh data, 11:24 live. We now have a Cat 5 out in the tropics. And again, as we go through the weekend, going to remain a Cat 5. And we think the winds right now you see at 160 will likely come up maybe over 170, 175, and then some before it'll eventually reach a more hostile environment as we head into late tomorrow and Monday. But even that, it's going to be so powerful. We're still talking about a Cat 4. And keep in mind that ocean and the motion spreads out well before and well ahead of these systems. So we're going to start to see dangerous rip currents developing in Florida as we head through Sunday. Higher surface we head into Monday, Tuesday along the East Coast. That includes St. Augustine up to Jax Beach, Neptune Beach, Amelia Island, Southeast Georgia. You can see the current forecast. Good news is, yes, it's much stronger and intense, but the actual track is about the same. So we'll continue to watch that. Wind field, the main thing with this will be the dangerous seas, surf, and rip currents for Florida and the East Coast. You can see for our friends in Bermuda, some of the models trending maybe a little closer, but still more of a 40-50% chance of seeing some of those tropical storm force gusts here. And right now, still expected to split St. George and Bermuda and areas of the Carolinas as we head into next week. Overall, if you're looking at the big picture in the tropics right now, the pattern's good. We've got two high pressures, and the weakness between the high pressure helping these storms continue to head out to sea and away from the United States. But as we head into next week, we're still seeing a very active African wave train. So Robert and I here, we'll be back with you tomorrow also at 11 o'clock, and it's still going to stay active. And with this high pressure building a little farther west, yeah, systems could come even closer to home as we go into the long range. But for now, it's one storm at a time for sure. And we're tracking Category 5 Hurricane Erin that continues to spin up in the tropics and away from us as we head through the weekend. So, Robert, we're going to wrap this up here. Appreciate you being with me. And you know what? This is a historical storm. And I say we do this again. We'll have an update at 2 o'clock, a live update, you and I, and we'll do another show. How's that sound?
All right, sounds good.
Okay, I'll see you right back here. Get a little food for me.